My name is Chelsea. I am a sideline reporter, an entertainment host, a television personality, an anchor, various different hats within the television world. And I was a lifer here at Poly. So I started in pre-K, went all the way through 12th, and this was the definition of my life up until I was 18 or 19 and basically had to figure out what was next. When I was sitting in the seats that you guys are in, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had kind of no idea. I did grow up in an entertainment family. My dad was a writer, a producer for television. My sister is 13 years older than I am, and she's a TV director, so it's kind of natural that I might go into television. But that being said, my family was really big on not handing things to us and kind of giving jobs, like just because I was my dad's daughter or whatever. So anything that I needed to do or wanted to do, I was going to have to earn. So happy to tell you guys how I got into the business, how I started and all that kind of stuff, but I wanted to just sort of curate the room a little bit and see if any of you guys are interested in television, if you have any idea if you want to be a reporter or an anchor, if maybe you want to be an actor. Anyone in here for, raising hands, I guess, want to be in television? Not sure? Kind of?
Journalism, maybe.
Journalism?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And the rest of you as well? What do you want to do?
Writing.
Writing? Okay, so like a television writer. Awesome. So I can tell you it's probably, in my experience, I haven't had another job. I started at 24. It's been the most fun job I've had. Basically because what were some of potentially my weaknesses, and Mr. Feldman can probably attest to this, in high school, I may have been a class talker. I was probably always getting yelled at for talking in class.
I never yelled at you once.
You never yelled. But I was always in the back talking to people because I was generally interested in my classmates and I was generally interested in communication. So what was potentially a weakness back then actually turned into one of my greatest strengths. I didn't really know that this is what I wanted to do, but when I went to college, I realized that the school that I went to SMU in Dallas. I kind of thought I wanted to get into fashion design. My parents sort of steered me away from that. When I got to SMU in Dallas, I realized that the journalism school wasn't super great, and I wasn't really sure that that's what I wanted to do, so I went with the best major in the communications department, which was advertising. I did that for 4 years. It was fun. I got super burnt out on it. I ended up being on the advertising team in college. I did like 500 plus hours. We won the national competition. It was cool. And it set me up for what would have been probably a very awesome job. But at the time, I graduated as a senior and I was like, ooh, I am so done with advertising. Like, I've spent way too many hours doing it. And then it was time to look for something else. So I came back to LA and I started as a production assistant at Entertainment Tonight and Insider. I don't know how much of you guys, do you guys even watch those shows now, or E News? Okay, so let's take a poll. You do? E? Okay. Do you guys watch more TV or do you watch more YouTube?
TV.
YouTube? A little bit of both?
Like for news?
Oh,
Just in general.
TV.
general public.
More TV?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good to hear. That's good to hear because in our business, everybody's kind of scrambling and trying to figure out internet and whether or not you should jump ship and go to internet because they were worried about kids like yourself just turning off your television and watching on a computer. So I've had experience in both. I started in the internet, which sounds so old when you say the internet, sorry. But I started in internet just doing, at the time when I started my career, I really wanted to be a VJ. MTV was huge, we had TRL. I was like, I would love to do that. I loved interviewing people. I thought the job looked super fun. It was celebrities, it was glitzy, it was glossy. So I looked for jobs that would give me that kind of expertise or that kind of experience. And I just started taking basically any job I could find. And in my business, we don't have like a typical resume, you have a reel. So that's like a video of all of your compilation of work, and that's how I get jobs. So I knew that starting off in the business, I needed to find a reel. And you can fake one, you can make one up. If you guys are interested in journalism right now, that's something you can start doing now. You can create a YouTube channel if you're interested in doing that, even for writing. Like, you could pair up with somebody who might want to do journalism, and you guys could do something together and create something and start building a reel and a resume right now, seeing if that's something you're actually interested in. Back when I started, that wasn't really an opportunity that we had, but it was something I definitely would have done if I was thinking about a career in television back then. So from that, I basically went and did a bunch of different internet jobs. There's an internet site called Clever. Do any of you guys know Clever? Because so I was one of the founding members of Clever. I did Clever Movies when it was just Jocelyn and Dana and I. It was crazy. We shot so many videos.
What is Clever?
So Clever TV, it's entertainment news. Well, that's how it started. So I used to do the movies. I used to do all the trailers, all of the interviews with celebrities and stuff like that. Now it's totally different. You guys seem like you know what Clever is. They have really fun programming, shows like Beauty Break, Lunchy Break. They do kind of wacky, fun. That would be like more of being a television personality or being like what we would call a host. Less of journalistic kind of things and less of being a reporter. So that's the cool thing about what I do is that there's various different avenues that you can take. You can be a traditional reporter, and I've worked in sports at Fox Sports and ESPN, for 5 to 6 years. I've gone to the Olympics and covered them at Fox Sports. I went to Russia with ESPN. I've done the College World Series. I've done the BCS National Championship as a sideline reporter. So all of those things are more traditional and more along the lines of news and kind of part of reporting. Clever and those kinds of things are more of hosting. And hosting is basically a really awesome job where you get paid to be yourself. You just get paid to interact with people, to talk directly to the camera, talk to the audience, and have fun. So Clever's a great example of that. And then entertainment news is the business of celebrity. So I've done a lot of that stuff as well, hosting red carpets for the American Music Awards, the Billboard Awards. Gosh, I don't know, I've been on way too many red carpets. Doing interviews with celebrities and stuff like that. I've also done morning shows. I did a 3-hour live morning show for E, where it was kind of like the Today Show. It was probably the best job of my career. I loved it. And leading up until now, I work for the World Surf League as a sideline reporter. I don't know if any of you guys are fans of surfing. Yes, no, maybe so. It's okay, we live in California. We're supposed to be fans of surfing, but I'm not either. I don't know how to surf. I'm a fan now that I have the job, but I didn't know how to surf when I got it. But it's been amazing because I've actually had my foot in a lot of different aspects of the business. And subsequently, I have also started a YouTube channel because that is the wave of the future. And that is where everybody is kind of going. So learning how to make your own content, write it, shoot it, produce it, if you're interested in a career in television, is invaluable. And the cool thing for you guys is that's something you can start now. It's super easy to just put a camera up. It doesn't have to look fantastic and start hosting things. Has anyone like hosted a talk show when they were younger or interviewed their stuffed animals? I mean, I know we're all older now, but I definitely did that. Did anyone else do that?
Maybe for like a school project.
For a school project? Yeah.
Interviews and stuff for people.
Okay, did you like it?
Socks.
Yeah? What did you guys say? Socks?
Oh no, sometimes after games for South, I interview the athletes.
Oh, that's cool. So how do you like that? You're like, don't put me on the spot.
It's pretty relaxed,
Yeah. Well, the awesome thing about being an interviewer is that your job is really to tell the story of the person that you're interviewing. And this, like talking about myself, is actually not something I'm very good at. I don't really love being the center of attention, which is why this is the perfect career for me, because my specific job is to highlight the person that I'm interviewing, is to tell their story. And that really, just your skill sets have to be compassion, have to be listening, sincerity, those kinds of things really go a long way in being an interviewer, because you're reading people. You're just, talking to somebody and finding out what they're interested in, trying to tell the story in a different way than somebody else has told the story. And it's actually, it's really cool because you find out things from people that you never would have known about them, and you are able to be a part of sharing their story with a larger group of people, which is why I truly love that part of it for me. It's really fun to do entertainment hosting and to stand up and be goofy and fun and just be myself, but it's really also amazing to shine that light on somebody else and to tell the story of somebody that I'm interviewing. So I would say that was probably something that I love the most. Do you guys have questions in particular about the genre as a whole, about television jobs, or do you want to hear about more about how I got into it, or various things that I've done?
Well, specifically about being an interviewer, is it somewhat like being an actor in the sense that you have an agent that like sends you to other?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is another funny kind of thing. When I was in school here, I didn't even try out for the plays. I never would have done that because auditioning to me would have been terrifying. It would have not been something I wanted to do. I got anxiety when we would go through classrooms and you had to read out loud. You don't do like every other paragraph. I would just be sitting there going, oh my god, I have to. Now I get paid to read out loud. It's ridiculous. You know, I all the time think, God, how did I end up in this career? So yes, you do have an agent, you do have a manager, and you do audition. So you create something called a reel, which is just a video compilation of all the various jobs that you do. And you can have like, since I work in sports and entertainment, which is sometimes rare, a lot of people will pick one avenue or the other. In entertainment, you want to show that you're fun and that you can keep people's attention, and that you can have like real life experiences, especially with celebrities, that you're not just going to be stiff, that you can kind of have an interaction where it looks like you're friends. In sports, you want to be able to show that you can be composed, that you can ask serious questions, that you can really like attack a situation, because sometimes you are chasing after people. You know, especially in football, like if they're running off the field, you got to try to grab the coaches, and you have to be a little bit more extroverted.
Yeah.
Which again, I would say I'm probably like, I think there's a new term, introverted extrovert. That's definitely me. I'm sometimes shocked at the career that I picked because I don't find myself to be as extroverted as I need to be in my career, but it's completely different when it's just me and the camera, which is something that I don't think I would have realized when I was in school here, because I think I would have ruled it out. I would have thought, oh, I'm not outgoing. I mean, I'm very social, but I'm not, the one that's gonna lead the party or that kind of a thing. And in my job now, I do have to be the leader. I do have to chase after people. I do have to kind of exert my own energy and that kind of thing, which wasn't my strength back in high school. So it's interesting to look back at the person that you were when I was sitting in the seats that you guys are in, and some of the careers that I would have probably said, oh no, I probably will be good at that, I probably won't be good at that. But sometimes when you're in it, you're better at it than you think you would have been. And if I went back now, I probably would have auditioned for the school plays, and I probably would have put myself out there more, because now my entire job is based on auditioning. So my agents and my managers will send me to auditions. I'll usually go out against, sometimes it could be 300 other people. For Fox Sports, I went out against 300 other people. And at that particular time, I wasn't in sports. I was actually an entertainment reporter. I was just coming off the show on E, and an agent from New York called me and said, I think you'd be really good at sports. And I was like, well, I've always liked sports, but I'm not a sports reporter. And he said, I don't think it matters. So he sent me to Fox Sports, and it was one of those auditions where I thought, I'm not gonna get this one. Like, this is not my job, for sure. And then they called 2 weeks later, and they're like, you got the job. I was like, what?
So it was one audition?
One audition.
Wow.
And they range. Sometimes, and a lot, I'm lucky once you get to a certain point in your career, people will call you and you don't have to audition anymore, and that's wonderful. It's really nice for somebody to say, you'd be really good at this job. You don't need to audition for it, we know we want you, that's great. But you spend years kind of trying to prove that you are the right person for that job. And sometimes, I have found that the things I think I know the least about are actually the things I end up liking the most. So for instance, I wasn't trying to go into sports. It was kind of one of those like life curveballs where this agent was like, I think you'd be really great. I got that job. I spent 6 years there, and I went back to entertainment here and there, but that was like a pivotal career shift for me, and where I went into sports full time and sort of stayed in it for like the next 6 or 7 or 8 years. So yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah.
I guess I was just wondering, coming from someone in the industry, have you felt the effects of the Me Too movement in the industry? And like, have you had any experiences? I mean, not necessarily, but have you had any experiences with the Me Too movement? And do you feel like something that's like affected the discourse in the industry along?
This is such a good question. I can tell you want to be a journalism major or work in journalism. It's a hard question to answer because I think we're all feeling the effects of the Me Too movement, and I think everybody's still trying to figure out how that's going to change the industry. I think it's really going to change the industry in a positive way. It already has in a lot of ways. But I think what it is making everybody realize, because a lot of times in television, it can be a very casual environment, it can be a very jokey, fun environment, and I think if anything, it's really making people think before they get too chummy, think before, you know, I guess think before they act in a lot of ways. I mean, in sports, it's a different, especially being a woman in sports, that's a whole different kind of path to walk, I guess. So I think in that sense, it's helping change the industry for the better. Although I always had a fantastic experience. I'm sure, you know, I might be in the minority at this point with the Me Too movement is going, but I didn't have any experiences like that. And of course there is, you know, some of the typical things that you're saying, especially if you're a female and maybe there's male executives, or you know, you see all kinds of different things, but I sort of chose my own path and I never really felt implicated by it. I'm lucky in that sense. I've had amazing experiences in my industry, but I do think that it's going to change. I'm not quite sure the scope of the change yet, because I think we're still very much in the middle of it. I don't think it's going to hurt the industry. I think it is, if anything, it's really helping the industry, and it's really encouraging people to change the dynamic and sort of change some of the old rules that everybody was abiding by. And it's also bringing things out into the light. It's encouraging people to start that conversation, and that's my whole job, is starting a conversation. So I'm really happy to see that people are embracing it and being comfortable with it. I don't know if I answered your question.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to know if you think that like the way that people break into the industry has changed, like from when you broke into it until today.
Yes, I do. And I think it's because I think there's so many more opportunities, like I said, with YouTube, for people to create a career for themselves much, much earlier. And when I first started, one of the biggest problems was I had to wait for somebody to hire me in order to get the experience that I needed in order to get other jobs. So I had to audition and then book an audition in order to get a job, in order to learn how to do the job. But now you don't. You can set up a camera right now and be hosting, you know, for 3 years before you ever need to go get a paid job. You're going to be a lot better than somebody who wasn't able to actually practice. So I think that is how the internet is changing things and how it's different from when I first started. Because when I first started, I was going out on sidewalks with a cameraman and faking stories, you know, to basically have tape. And then the goal was, you get a job, you replace one fake story. You get another job, you replace the second, and then finally you have a reel that's actually real, you know? But that's how we did it. We just faked our own reels, and then those, because yes, no, 10 minutes. Oh, I was like, yes, Kat. What do you want to know? So yeah, I think it's drastically changed, and I think for the benefit of all of you. I mean, even if you, let's say, want to be a writer, you can write a script, you can shoot it, and you can market it immediately. So I think the access to the careers that you may want to have in television are much more in the palm of your hands than they ever were when I was starting. I really had to be afforded the opportunity to be able to work in the industry that I wanted to work. And I had to do it. I started as a PA, I was getting paid $7 an hour, I was logging tapes at Entertainment Tonight, I was like running coffee, you know, all of that kind of stuff, and you really had to do that. Now you don't. And for a lot of people like me, the YouTubers and the YouTube generation are starting to take a lot of the entertainment hosting jobs because they have the followings, because you guys might be their fans. And that's what's really important in our industry right now, is who has a built-in fan base already. Because the advertisers, the networks, they want to ensure that the person that they're hiring to run their show already has a bunch of people that are going to watch just because they're hosting. So that is where it has changed in entertainment, whereas in sports, it's not that way. It's completely different, and that's where those two sort of aspects of the business are kind of separating in a way, I think. Entertainment's changing drastically. But yeah, I think you guys have the benefit of starting now if you were interested in it. Mr. Feldman?
When you were covering sports that you didn't know much about,
Yeah.
how did you get that knowledge?
You know what? That's where I'm just having an aha moment. That's where going to school here probably helped me the most because I knew how to study. I knew how to study hard, and I think that that's why I was able to be as successful as I was in sports or am in sports. One of my calling cards for my agent is that they know that they can call me and throw me into a situation that they know I know nothing about. For instance, with surfing, I had 1 week. They gave me 1 week before I went to my first event. It was live. I worked, surfing's different because we follow the waves, right? So it's not like a 3-hour football game where it's like, okay, I'm on live for 3 hours. I just have to get through those 3 hours. We could run 12 hours. I do an interview every 30 minutes. And I do a winner's interview and a loser's interview, and I have 3 questions for each. So it's a lot. I mean, it's definitely trial by fire, and if you don't know what you're talking about, it's gonna come out in the wash that you don't know what you're talking about. And I also had to anchor, and that was an interesting experience because I didn't have a script, and a lot of times I didn't have a producer, so I had to do my own. It was my first sideline reporting job. It was intense, but studying. I just basically immersed myself into whatever it is that I'm trying to learn. So for surfing, I watched hours and hours and hours in that week. I mean, probably 12 to 20 hours a day of the old events. And then I just started, the fun part for me with interviewing anyone, and I love doing sports because there is always a winner and there is always a loser, and the stories are drastically different and they're so interesting. But I always want to find that thing that nobody else is asking. I don't love just covering the actual sport, I like covering the athlete. So digging a little bit deeper, like trying to figure out the human element of that person for me is what's very interesting for me personally. So yeah, how I mean, for dummies books, you know, basically internet searches, whatever, but a lot of times I don't have a lot of time. When I went to Russia for ESPN, I had 2 weeks. And I was covering the World University Games, which is the college level Olympics. So I was covering everything from shot put to who knows what else, like loging and whatever. I mean, they had all kinds of sports I'd never even heard of. So, you know, just learning as fast as I possibly could. But I had the best experience here learning how to study. So I think that key, I mean, that's a huge part of my job. Even if I'm studying things that, you know, are just learning a sport, or if I'm studying a person. It's all kind of studying. Yeah.
Just wondering in terms of like journalism in DC, like that kind of stuff. Like, but you ever watch Vice News? Like. I
do watch Vice News.
Yeah, I watch Vice.
Yeah, Vice is great.
I just like those kind of like jobs where maybe they go to like Myanmar for like a month or something. Like, are the people who get those kind of jobs mostly coming from an entertainment communications background? Is it possible to come onto those jobs from like a like a poli-sci background or something like that? Where do most of those people start out and how do they get involved?
You know what? I don't know specifically with Vice, but I would assume there was still some local news that people were doing, and that's kind of how people started doing hosting or reporting. When I was starting, the big thing was move to Idaho, move to Ohio, start at a small station, cut your teeth there. It's similar in sports. In sports, they throw you into an action sport, so that's your training ground. So they figure there's not that many people watching surfing as there would be watching football. So we're going to go have you learn and cut your teeth in surfing, and then when you're ready, we move you to baseball, basketball, football. So I think it's still similar, but yeah, I think there's a new trend in the industry in the last couple of years where it's like if you're an expert in something, you might be hired to host or report on that particular thing, and a lot of people are picking up extra degrees, going back to school, getting expertise in different things, especially if they were in the entertainment space, because that really benefits you in getting those jobs and positioning yourself to be able to do something like Vice News. Yeah. Anyone else? No? Do you guys know what you guys want to do career-wise? Have you thought about it? Yeah? What?
General idea.
What do you want to do?
Something in media.
Something in media. Okay, that's cool. And you seem like you know what you want to do.
I want to do molecular biology. So.
Oh, you did. All right. Well, that was another important thing that I just wanted to tell you guys is that whenever sitting in those seats, I I didn't know. And I think that it's super cool that you have this now, because we didn't have this when I was here at Poly. So you can really experience and talk to the different people about what you might be interested in, especially PolyConnect's awesome, Catherine. I'm looking and seeing all the various alumni, and I think people are really willing to share their stories with you guys and help you guys, because it's such a unique opportunity, and all of us have to start somewhere. So if any of you are interested in television and you want to reach out, I'm more than happy to help or to further ask questions or give you whatever answers I might have. But definitely keep asking the questions, and definitely keep sitting here and learning as much as you can, because you may not know now, but there's so many things that I would have crossed off the list because I would have thought I wasn't qualified or couldn't do them, my career being one of them. So it's the more you know, knowledge is power, the more you will find what it is that you guys want to do. Last question? No?
Actually, I do have a question.
Okay, please.
I'm curious, like, as a woman in the entertainment industry, like, how much of your job or like the jobs you get are based on your looks?
That's a great question. I'm trying to think of, I would say looks are important. I'm not going to sugarcoat that for sure. And I think that a lot of times it might be more in your head than it is actually what they're looking for. A lot of times you won't know why you didn't get a job, and it might be something like your hair color wasn't right, or they already had a blonde, or something along those lines. I mean, that kind of thing will happen, but I feel like in what I do, it's more based on personality. So a lot of times I will get jobs because of my personality, or because of the work that I've done on past jobs and recommendations. So I've gotten a lot of, people know I'm a hard worker, I don't show up late. A lot of things that you learn here, like, you can't be late for class, your teacher's gonna get mad at you. Like, all of those things go a long way. They're life lessons, and people remember. No, but they do, and you will be judged on those things, and people will be likely to hire people that they want to work with. Because the thing is, we are like, 20 minutes from Hollywood. There's hundreds of people who want to do the same thing or want to work in the industry. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are talented, but it's what kind of person you are and your work ethic. So I feel like those are the kind of the two more important things. But when I first started, I did really worry about, oh, do I have the right look? Is my hair big enough? Like, do I have the great wardrobe? Am I pretty enough? And of course, that's going to happen because when you go to Hollywood, it's like the land of beautiful people. So you do start comparing yourself. But I think we're in a time where individuality is really respected and sort of sought after, and people are craving that. They're craving something different. So I don't really think that beauty or outside beauty is really what people are driven towards anymore. I think that they want honesty, I think that they want humanity, I think that they want individuality, and I think that they want to learn and they want something different. I don't think we have this like homogenous sort of television look anymore, and in a lot of ways, I think that's almost looked at as a negative. Like, you don't want to be like a character from Anchorman. I mean, but when I started, you kind of did. So, thank you, Chelsea. Yeah.